All right. We are back here at Song of the Day, coming to you from the Rock Cave. I'm your host, Mark Pierce. It is Saturday. We are getting a late start today. Maybe it's just because I'm pondering my way, saying to myself, are we really doing this in the Rock Cave? And the answer is, yep. I'm just going to jump in the lake and see what happens. Going across my feed this week and seeing what kind of anniversaries were coming up, and this one came along, and at first I went by it, but then I thought, you know what, there are no rules here in the cave really, or at least they're bendable, so we're going to talk about it. We're going back to November 15th 1977. The soundtrack to Saturday Night Fever drops. Yep, that's what we're talking about today here in the Rock Cave. Get out your disco ball or change the channel, whichever one it is you desire, but this is an important record. It's the second most selling soundtrack in history. It was the most selling soundtrack until The Bodyguard came around. 40 million copies, 16 million in the United States. Double record. It spent 24 weeks in a row at number one. That means from January to July 1978, it was the number one album. Think about that for a minute. January to July. 120 weeks total on the chart. I would have thought it was a little bit more than that, but still, that's a decent run. It stopped in March of 1980, just in time for disco to die, right? So, you know, you think about this, and people are going to be, Mark, you can't do disco in the Rock Cave. But, you know, when you talk about my musical journey, it's important because we all listen to this stuff. We were kids. It was like 3 days before my 9th birthday that this came out. I was like, you know, kid. So this was really, who was listening to this? Was our parents were listening to it, I guess. I mean, I don't know who the main demographics were for this music, but we were kids. And I bought all these 45s along with the Grease soundtrack, and that's, you know, even though we were listening to top 40, but, you know, that's what we were listening to. Casey Kasem, American Top 40, every Saturday morning. Again, we were kids. So, interesting part about this record is the Bee Gees were not involved in the movie making or anything to do with it. They weren't even on tap to be on the soundtrack. When John Travolta was doing all those dance scenes in the disco, they were dancing to Stevie Wonder during the rehearsals and the filming, and Boz Scaggs' Lowdown. The plan was to use Lowdown for that scene, that iconic scene. Think about that. Do you know the song Lowdown? Can you picture it? As a matter of fact, Boz Scaggs' people wouldn't release it to the film because they wanted to do it in a different film, which never came to fruition. But I don't know that Lowdown would have had the same effect. And then the Bee Gees were approached. They were recording in France and said, hey, do you have any songs? And they started putting some songs out for them to do that. Staying Alive, the original name of the song was Saturday Night, but there was already a lot of songs called Saturday Night, including that Bay City Rollers tune. And their first, they wrote and performed 4 or 5 songs on this soundtrack, and even If I Can't Have You is their song, but they didn't use their version. They had Yvonne Elliman. She was the version on the record. It won Grammy Album of the Year, the only disco album ever to win Album of the Year, one of only 3 soundtracks ever to win Album of the Year at the Grammy. So yes, this was a big deal. And I don't know, what were the older kids listening to? If you were not in the disco camp, you were listening to prog rock, Yes, Led Zeppelin, the Eagles, anything but disco, right? But this was a national phenomenon, as we all know. So let's talk about these songs. I mean, these songs, they are nostalgic for me. Staying Alive, of course, the staple, that would be the gold standard for disco, right? How Deep Is Your Love? You know, Night Fever, awesome song. More Than a Woman, like we talked about. 2 versions of that on there. Tavares does one too, right? Oh, no, that's If I Can't Have You. Sorry. If I Can't Have You, that's the next one. Or is it More Than a Woman? I don't know. You know what? I'm all over the place right here this morning. A Fifth of Beethoven. Remember, that's how kids learned about Beethoven. That's how we knew who Beethoven was, when it was done to disco, right? Night on Disco Mountain. I loved these songs when I was a kid. I loved this soundtrack. That was a good one. Open Sesame, Kool and the Gang, when he starts off with Open Sesame and there's that gong. That was a great song. Kool and the Gang. Love that one. Jive Talking. I think Jive Talking was cut from the movie, wasn't it? Is there no scene in the movie with Jive Talking? So I read that somewhere. You Should Be Dancing. Awesome. Boogie Shoes. Casey and the Sunshine Band. There you go. There's something to dance to. And then one of my personal favorites, Disco Inferno by the Tramps. That one. You know what? I played this record. I did. I played this record this morning. That's why I'm so late. And you know, it's a genre of music. It had its place in time. And again, nostalgic for me, a 9-year-old, 10-year-old me. It was nice to listen to this record. I don't need to listen to it regularly, but it did bring me back. So, we are doing some disco here in the Rock Cave just because, you know what? It's an important part of the journey. Maybe we'll be doing CNC Music Factory one of these days. So, anyway, what's your song of the day? When I listened to this, I said, you know what? Night Fever is a stronger song than Staying Alive for me. I'm doing Night Fever as song of the day. There you go. All right, cue it up, cue it up. Give me what you got. I can hear you now, but you know what? You 9 and 10 and 11-year-olds, you were listening to it. I know you were. So, comment below. Saturday Night Fever in the Rock Cave. What do you think? Have a good one, and as usual, I'll catch you on the flip side.